Address Against War. Speech of Charles A. Lindbergh given in New York, April the 23rd, 1941. By Charles A. Lindbergh. There are many viewpoints from which the issues of this war can be argued. Some are primarily idealistic, some are primarily practical. One should, I believe, strive for a balance of both. But since these subjects that can be covered in a single address are limited, tonight I shall discuss the war from a viewpoint which is primarily practical. It is not that I believe ideals are unimportant even among the realities of war. But if a nation is to survive in a hostile world, its ideals must be backed by the hard logic of military practicability. If the outcome of war depended upon ideals alone, this would be a different world than it is today. I know I will be severely criticized by the interventionists in America when I say we should not enter a war unless we have a reasonable chance of winning. That, they will claim, is far too materialistic a viewpoint. Oh, okay, so we go over there and we fight the war and all of America is destroyed. That's what they wanted, right? That's what it sounds like. All right, they will advance again the same arguments that were used to persuade France to declare war against Germany in 1939. But I do not believe that our American ideals, our way of life, will gain through an unsuccessful war. And I know that the United States is not prepared to wage war in Europe successfully at this time. We are no better prepared today than France was when the interventionists in Europe persuaded her to attack the Siegfried Line. Imagine that. France was instigated to strike the first blow against Germany. I have said before, and I will say again, that I believe it will be a tragedy to the entire world if the British Empire collapses. I don't know. That is one of the main reasons why I opposed this war before it was declared, and why I have constantly advocated a negotiated peace. I did not feel that England and France had a reasonable chance of winning. France has now been defeated, and despite the propaganda and confusion of recent months, it is now obvious that England is losing the war. I believe this is realized even by the British government, but they have one last desperate plan remaining, the hope that they may be able to persuade us to send in another American expeditionary force to Europe and to share with England militarily as well as financially the fiasco of this war. I'd like to add another thing we would be sending in to share with the English military. Blood, our blood. I do not blame England for this hope or for asking for our assistance, but we now know that she declared a war under circumstances that led to the defeat of every nation that sided with her from Poland to Greece. You want me to reread that for you? I do not blame England for this hope or for asking for our assistance, but we now know that she declared a war under circumstances that led to the defeat of every nation that sided with her from Poland to Greece. Do you know why they all fell? Because Britain was not there to be their shield, because it was military agreements back then on who was to help who. And over there, it was all family against family. All the royal heads of state were related to each other. We know that in the desperation of war, England promised to all these nations armed assistance that she could not send. We know that she misinformed them, as she has misinformed us concerning her state of preparation, her military strength, and the progress of the war. In time of war, truth is always replaced by propaganda. I do not believe we should be too quick to criticize the actions of a belligerent nation. Why was it belligerent? Oh, yeah, somebody declared war on them in 1933 that made the front page of the, what was it, British Gazette London Gazette, one of those two. 1933, Zion declares war on Germany. It's out there too. You can look it up. You can even see a copy of the front page. It's still out there. There is always the question whether we ourselves would do better under similar circumstances. But we in this country have a right to think of the welfare of America first, just as the people of England, just as the people in England thought first of their own country when they encouraged the smaller nations of Europe to fight against hopeless odds. Yeah, England was hoping she wouldn't have to honor her agreements. So she sent all of these small, divided countries to their defeat. That's really noble of England, wasn't it? When England asks us to enter this war, she is considering her own future and that of her empire, not us. In making our reply, I believe we should consider the future of the United States and that of the Western Hemisphere. It is not only our right, but it is our obligations as American citizens to look at this war objectively. Not just that one, all wars. It's being done in your name. We all need to look at it objectively. And to weigh our chances for success if we should enter it. I have attempted to do this, especially from the standpoint of aviation, and I have been forced to the conclusion that we cannot win this war for England regardless of how much assist Europe today, and see if you can suggest any way in which we could win this war if we entered it. Suppose we had a large army in America, trained and equipped. Where would we send it to fight? The campaigns of the war show only too clearly how difficult it is to force a landing or to maintain an army on a hostile coast. Suppose we took our navy from the Pacific and used it to convoy British shipping. That would not win the war for England. It would at best permit her to exist under the constant bombing of the German air fleet. Suppose we had an air force that we could send to Europe. Where could it operate? Some of our squadrons might be based in the British Isles, but it is physically impossible to base enough aircraft in the British Isles alone to equal in strength the aircraft that can be based on the continent of Europe. I know something here that kind of piqued my interest that I was wanting to make a little comment about. Let's see if I can find it real quick so I don't keep you waiting. Yeah, I was just going to say they had 2 weeks of supplies to last on, but that's not being addressed in here. As far as our fleet, our naval fleet, that was a no-go. Anyway, I have asked these questions on the supposition that we had in existence an army and an air force large enough and well enough equipped to send to Europe, and that we would dare to remove our navy from the Pacific. If we had, it might not have gotten bombed, would it? Even on this basis, I do not see how we could invade the continent of Europe successfully as long as all of that continent and most of Asia is under Axis dominion. But the fact is that none of these suppositions are correct. We have only a one ocean navy. Our army is still untrained and inadequately equipped for foreign war. Our air force is deplorably lacking in modern fighting planes. When these facts are cited, the interventionists shout that we are defeatist, that we are undermining the principles of democracy, that we are giving comfort to Germany by talking about our military weakness. But everything I mentioned here has been published in our own newspapers and in the reports of congressional hearings in Washington. Our military position is well known to the governments of Europe and Asia. Why then should it not be brought to the attention of our people? Our own. So that ends this one.